Hello and welcome back to The Beth Effect. I am your host, Beth Clifford, and this week we are going to dive into a topic that always makes me feel a little uncomfortable, and it's just change. And when change hits you, whether you have change hit you unexpectedly, whether you are making a change consciously, or whether you feel like it is time to make a change, and how to do those steps. So I'll start by just saying, change really is an inevitable part of life. Like we're changing, we're aging, our bodies are changing, everything changes around us. That's just part of the human life cycle. And I think what can feel intimidating or scary about change is the fact that as we're young and developing, and Mel Robbins talks about this in her book, that our seasons that we're going through are usually the same as our social friendship groups. So you think about, like, my son right now in kindergarten, him and his friends are all going through the same thing. They're all about to graduate from kindergarten, but they're all in it together. And there's also not a choice. It's not an option. One's not staying behind. It's not like half of them are deciding, we're actually going to stay in kindergarten, and the other half are deciding that they are going to graduate in January instead of May. Everyone's going through it at the same time. So although they feel sad or excited or whatever they're feeling about that change, it's happening to all of them together. And almost they don't have a choice. I think of that with, high school graduates. It's the same thing. Change is coming. It's emotional, but you're all going through it together, and you can't control that. It's all happening. Obviously, there are different circumstances outside of graduation, but I'm just saying in general, most of your social friends or people in the same boat as you are experiencing the same thing as you at the same time. So it's expected, it's coming, it's also socially normal. But what happens now, like when you feel, let's start with when you feel like it's time to change. So you're now an adult, you're in a situation, whether it's with work, in a relationship, with a friendship or a circumstance, maybe you feel like moving, where you feel like it's time for a change, but it's now not the social norm. Right? Everyone's doing it at the same time. If you were to do it, you'd be the only one doing it and going through it. So there are some signs when you can start to tell that maybe it's time to make a change. And the first one I would say is just like burnout. You get really burnt out by something that you used to be excited about, or you get really exhausted. I know one of my previous jobs, I was a talent acquisition manager, which meant that I managed a team of corporate recruiters. So for a living, we would interview candidates and help hiring managers decide who we were going to hire within the company. And I used to joke that I got paid to judge for a living, but that's exactly what it was. And honestly, when I first started in that role, I loved it. I couldn't wait to have in-person interviews. Obviously, there's a lot of back end, like you have online, you're making phone calls, you're setting up. I would have my team set up interviews, so we would sit in meetings and discuss like what talent do we have, what talent needs help, all those parts of the job. But my favorite part of the job were the in-person interviews. I get to have someone sit in front of me, and I would be asking them questions, watching how they say things, when they say things, and basically making an evaluation of the person in front of me. And I used to love it. And then in the last 6 months of that job, I started to dread in-person interviews. Like, it was the bane of my existence. The idea of having to sit there and be on and ask questions, and I'm looking at them, and I specifically remember some interviews I would look at the candidate while they were talking to me and answering the question, and in my head I'd be thinking, I just really don't care what this person has to say. Like, I know I'm not going to hire them, or I am, and I already knew. I just was so exhausted and burnt out of that. And then a friend came to me and was like, hey, my company has an opening. Do you want to interview for it? And I was like, yes, absolutely. And there's this excitement of like, oh, it's going to be changed. Like, maybe this is good. good. And it's a job that, by the way, I was severely underqualified for, I felt, and it would have been a huge learning curve for me. Went through the interview process. There's a period of like, ooh, maybe I should change. Maybe I should do this change. Maybe I should like flex. There's excitement in the beginning when change comes. But then when I got the job, I was excited. And then this like pit in my stomach hit where it was like, oh my gosh, I got this job. Now I can coast in my job. I'm very comfortable in my job. I already know all these people. I have a future career here. Like I have meetings with the CEO I'm thought highly of. Ooh, like this is scary. Like maybe I should just stay and it will be easy for me. And it's that comfortability. And I think that a lot of people, the enemy of change is comfort, because I also say the enemy of growth is comfort. Like when you're comfortable, it is and can be quite scary then to break off and go do something different, because different things are new and you have to learn new things and you have to meet new people. And all of a sudden, no one knows who you are and you have to start all over again. And I remember thinking, when I went and I took the job and I went and gave my 2 weeks notice to my current company, they came back with a counter offer and tried to say I could work at home and be home with my eldest at the time was 6 months. You can be home with your daughter a lot longer. Here's a counter offer. And I really did consider it for a couple days. I almost rescinded my acceptance offer. But I didn't. And I finally just went for it. And I think the reason why I didn't, in fact, I know the reason why I didn't, is I came into work fully planning to turn down the new job and stay at my current job. And I remember looking at my calendar and seeing that the next week and the next month, like looking out and planning out and just seeing all of those in-person interviews. And I thought, nah, I can't do this. Like, I am ready for a change. And although it will be scary, although it will be hard, although I'll have to prove myself all over again, I need to do it. It's the right time. And it is a very scary, it's scary to do. So my advice here to you, if you feel like you're in this stage where you're like, I sense that something needs to change in my life and I have these ideas of what it is, and in those moments you feel excited, but then you don't move forward towards it, some advice here is set deadlines. Like if you are saying, okay, I kind of want to make this change, but I'm not quite sure if I should, set a deadline, set a date. By this day, I will have done this. By this day, maybe you're in a job that you don't like it. Okay, by this day, I will have my resume updated. By this day, I will have applied for other jobs. By this day, I will have called a recruiter if I don't have a job. If you're in a relationship that you feel like needs to come to an end, set a date. By this day, on this day, I will have this tough conversation. By this day, hopefully we will sever ties. Maybe it's the fact that you maybe feel like it's time to move, and that there's nothing scarier than that thought of like uprooting your environment in lots of ways. And so set dates, make small steps towards it. By this day, I will have this thing done. So that's when you sense that you need a change, and it can be scary. But what happens when you don't want to change at all? And then it hits you without you knowing. Like what happens when you're faced with change without you wanting it or even planning it? And I think, I just came out of a very heavy work week where there was change, some change that we knew was coming, some change that we didn't. And I think that my advice here, when change hits you and you didn't want it or you weren't ready for it or you didn't see it coming, is first and foremost, number one, is like feel the feelings. Like when our dad left, when we immigrated to the States, and then 5 years later, our dad left us. That wasn't change. I mean, I knew we were moving to the States. I didn't want it, but we moved here. There were positive things. We had adjusted. We were fine. I didn't want my dad to leave us. That wasn't change I thought was coming or change I was prepared for or would have wanted or still would have wanted. I still would go back in time and wish that change hadn't happened. And my number one piece of advice when change hits you and you didn't want it and it was unexpected is take a moment to feel the feelings. Trying to suppress them never, ever works. Like, let the feelings out. Let your body grieve, mourn, feel the shock, feel the hurt, feel the anger. Let your body go through the natural stages of change and grief, because it's an ending of something without you planning. So you are grieving lots of things in lots of ways. And that's my number one advice is, one, feel the feelings. And then my second thing is, instead of thinking about, once you felt everything, instead of now thinking about or spending time on what could have been or what should have been in this situation, now change that mindset and shift it to what can be. So now this change happened. I felt my feelings. It doesn't mean the feelings go away quickly once you've acknowledged them, but you're there, that you've acknowledged them. I felt them, they're there. I'm dealing with them. Now, instead of thinking and being able to move through that anger stage faster, instead of dwelling on, well, what could have been, or what was unfair about this, or what would I wish was different, start now looking at, here's what it is, and now what could be? What could be from this? What do I want from this now? What are some takeaways I can have? Now this change has hit me. What is the plan moving forward? And I think that once you start to look at, okay, but what can be from this instead of what could have been, it's a huge game changer in your mindset. And just know that it will all work out, and probably down the road better than you would have thought. So that's when change happens to you and you didn't want it. I do think the blessing in this is, sometimes it does give you this fresh start that you didn't expect, which also can come with fresh goals and fresh perspective. And now you can create what you do want out of the outcome. And then lastly, it's like, what happens when you don't want change, but it's not working and something has to shift? And I think this is like a really hard place to be. And I think anytime you're dealing with change, it takes a lot of honesty and it takes a lot of bravery in the situation to make adjustments. But the biggest thing when it comes to change that I would say is, we can't avoid it. It's just part of being alive. Being alive, like, change happens. Plants, human beings, like the earth, like, change is constant. It's actually it is the one constant that we have, is that life will change. We will change. And my number one thing that I would give as advice from this podcast, and I'm actually giving this to myself as I'm experiencing some major changes, is number one, embrace the change. Really changing that mindset of like, it's not happening to me, it's happening for me. Change is a good thing. It may be painful in the time. It may mean that there's stretch marks, there's sadness, there's grief, but coming out the other end, something good will come of change, because it always does. And regardless, as if you're making the change or life is forcing the change on you, my advice here also is just have the faith and the belief that it's all going to work out, that it is all going to work out in your favor. And as that change is evolving, take control of how it's going to work out. Don't let life happen to you. Let life happen for you. Same thing with the change. So what do I want? How, now that this has happened, or now that I'm making this change, whether I want to or not, or I have to, what now do I want? What now do I want from this? And then go make it happen for you. So instead of allowing that change to just kind of leave you wandering around, go make the change, go make it work for you. Go create the life you want. Go start building something, building a healthier relationship, a happier relationship. Go find the job that you want out of this, or go create the business that you want out of this. Go create the environment that you would choose. If you feel like it's time to move and leave where you're living, go move to a place that you want. What could be? What could I get from this? What environment do I want to create for myself? There's actually a piece of us that dread change, but if we switch our mindset to be excited about change, and really think about, this is happening, so now what do I want out of this? And how can I use this to my advantage? And what can I create out of this which will make my life better? It is actually amazing what will then happen from that point. So that's it. Those are my final thoughts on the importance of bracing change and managing change. The last thing I will say as I kind of wrap this episode up is, I know it's cheesy, but my one piece of advice with change and just life in general is it's really hard to move forward. It's almost impossible to move forward when you're looking backwards. You can also honor the past and what was, but you don't need to keep looking back at it. You need to start looking forward and putting your energy into what's going to come and not what has been. So that cheesy saying is really true, and that's you can't move forward while looking backwards. And that's with everything to do with change and with life. And that's really it for this episode. I just want to give a shout out to my sponsors, Elevation Health, in this stressful week. I had a very stressful week in my personal business and then also my corporate job this week. There's just a lot of irons in the fire, a lot of changes coming. And I'm so appreciative of Elevation Health for basically keeping my cortisol levels down, helping me get sleep even on the nights where I was grieving or sad over things, and just giving me the energy to get through it. So thank you for that. I'll be back next week with a new episode of The Beth Effect. If you like this episode, if it resonated with you, if you feel like there's someone you know that would benefit from this episode, please like, share, subscribe, pass on to your friends. We are on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, any platform actually that you listen to podcasts. So I'll be back next week. Between then and now, please go follow at the Beth Clifford on Instagram and TikTok for more behind the scenes. And I'll be back with you next week. Happy Memorial Day.